Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're opening up a topic that often gets pushed into these really abstract policy discussions.
Right, very detached.
Exactly. But it's actually about something deeply personal, something with, a real human cost. We're talking about the denial of potential.
We are. We're diving into the systematic issue of disproportionate school discipline for students of color. And the data it's horrifying.
It really is. And for this deep dive, we're focusing on the analysis of Dr. Howie Knoff. He's a licensed psychologist, a nationally certified school psychologist.
And he has 4 decades of experience. I mean, we're talking about thousands of schools. His work just cuts right through the noise.
So he's not using euphemisms.
No. He argues, and the evidence is overwhelming, that this isn't some accident of policy. It's about discrimination. Pure and simple.
So our goal today is to get past just reading off the statistics. We want to really extract the root causes, the how and the why this happens, and more than anything, understand the devastating impact.
The psychological, the social, the vocational impact. Dr. Knoff calls it the systematic destruction of human potential.
One office referral at a time.
Exactly. And to set the stage, you have to start with the foundational data. The thing is, it hasn't really budged in decades.
That's the most shocking part.
It is.
Yeah.
The U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights. I mean, they consistently find that black students receive out-of-school suspensions at a rate of 3.8 times, sometimes even more, than white students.
3.8 times. Let's put that into perspective for you.
Let's make it real.
Imagine a middle school, maybe 800 kids. Let's say 100 of them are black, 600 are white. Now, if things were fair, the numbers would be proportional, right?
You'd think so.
But with that 3.8 times multiplier, that school might suspend around 20 of its black students. That's 20%.
20%.
Compared to maybe 3 of the 600 white students, that's 0.5%.
The comparison is it's chilling. When 1 in 5 black students in that school has lost class time versus 1 in 200 white students, you just can't call that random.
You really can't. So that number is jarring. But why is adolescence, those middle and high school years, why is that the tipping point where this all seems to just explode?
The answer is really rooted in neurobiology, and this is so critical. The middle school years, say ages 11 to 14, are just a time of explosive growth.
Identity, emotions, all of it.
All of it. But the brain isn't developing all at once. The limbic system, that's your emotional core, it's firing on all cylinders.
Right. The gas pedal is floored, but the brakes, they're not quite installed yet.
That's a perfect way to put it. The brakes, the prefrontal cortex, which handles impulse control, rational thinking, that part won't be fully mature until the mid-20s.
So teenagers are basically neurologically programmed to act before they think.
They are. They lead with these really intense emotional responses, especially when they feel something is unfair.
So what an adult might see as, defiance is really just an underdeveloped brain struggling.
It's a skill deficit, not a motivational one. And these moments should be opportunities for teaching, for learning.
But they're not.
But they're not. Because when racial bias enters the picture, that whole assumption gets shattered. A black student showing that same developmental struggle isn't seen as needing help.
They're seen as a threat.
Exactly.
We have to talk about the story of Marcus that Dr. Norfolk details in his work. He's this brilliant 8th grader, dreams of being an engineer, and he gets suspended for defiance. What did he actually do?
He was suspended for arguing and disrespect. And what that actually was him questioning why his science project got a lower grade than his white lab partners, even though their work was almost identical.
So he was advocating for himself.
He just questioned the discrepancy. And for that, his self-advocacy was labeled defiance.
That's horrifying. What does that teach a kid about fairness, about justice?
That is the core of the trauma. It wasn't just missing 3 days of school that hurt Marcus. It was the psychological wound.
Okay.
First, the faculty now sees him as a troublemaker. His whole academic path is altered. And second, and this is so important, he starts to feel like he has a specific race-driven place in that school.
And he can't step outside of it.
He can't. And that trust he had in the institution, in adults, to protect him, it's gone. That betrayal changes everything.
And that sense of injustice brings us to how this actually happens in the classroom. I mean, we know explicit, overt racism isn't as common anymore.
Right. It's much more subtle now. It's unconscious. That's the thing.
Yeah.
While explicit bias is rare, implicit bias is. It's just widespread.
How widespread?
The research says that around 80% of educators, and this is across all racial backgrounds, show an implicit bias that favors white students over black students.
80%.
And this is usually without any conscious awareness, no malicious intent.
So this isn't about finding a few bad apples then. If it's 80%, that means the structure itself is biased.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The structure normalizes it. You see it in classroom observations all the time. A white student questions an assignment, and the teacher calls them inquisitive.
Smart. Engaged.
Right. Minutes later, a black student asks basically the same question, and they're described as argumentative.
Challenging authority.
The behavior is the same. The interpretation is what's biased.
And for that black student, that difference is felt instantly.
Yeah.
It's the difference between being seen as an individual and being seen as a stereotype. The story of Keisha really drives this home.
Yeah, Keisha was 11 years old, 6th grade. She's frustrated with a math problem, and she mutters under her breath, "Stupid problem."
Okay, something kids do.
A very normal kid thing to do. She gets a full disciplinary referral for being disrespectful. A few minutes later, her white classmate, Jake, does the exact same thing. He gets a gentle reminder from the teacher to keep trying.
And for Keisha, whose brain is already wired to be super sensitive to fairness, that feels like a deep fundamental wrong.
The lesson she learns right then and there is, my actions are judged by a different standard.
And that connects to this idea of adultification bias.
It's a critical piece of the puzzle. Research shows that adults perceive black students as being significantly older than they actually are.
Older? By how much?
Sometimes 3 to 5 years older. So when a teacher looks at 11-year-old Keisha, they might unconsciously see a 15-year-old.
So her behavior isn't a kid struggling with math anymore.
It's interpreted as the intentional insolence of a teenager who should know better, and it gets punished as such.
So you're applying adult blame to a child for just being a child because of their race. That's just devastating.
It is. And then you layer on the environment. About 28% of black students are in predominantly white schools. That adds a whole other level of stress and isolation.
The burden of hypervisibility, just always being on.
Exactly. You're always aware that you represent more than just yourself. The source has this quote from a 10th grader, Jasmine.
What did she say?
She said, "Every day I walk into that building, I feel like I'm carrying the weight of my entire race on my shoulders. If I mess up, it's not just me. It's all black kids."
Wow. Just imagine the mental energy that takes just to get through a school day.
And that constant scrutiny directly impairs learning. It creates real psychological effects. The first one is stereotype threat.
Okay, what is that exactly?
It's the fear of confirming a negative stereotype about your group. So the student becomes so anxious about, say, looking unintelligent, that their anxiety actually hurts their performance.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It does. And then you have the sheer exhaustion from code switching.
Right. Shifting how you talk, how you act, depending on who you're with.
Yes. Constantly monitoring your behavior to fit into the school's culture, which might be very different from your home culture. It's draining. And on top of all that, you have the microaggressions.
The frequency of those is what always gets me.
It's shocking. Research suggests black middle and high schoolers experience, on average, 2 to 5 racial microaggressions every single day.
Every day. Things like, what?
Comments about their intellect, surprised that they speak proper English, invalidating their experiences. It's a constant, steady drip of poison.
This psychological toll, it has to turn into real trauma over time. We're talking about more than just missed class. This is institutional betrayal.
It rewires a student's trust in the world. Look at the case of Malik. He was 14. He started having panic attacks, couldn't sleep.
Why? What happened?
He was suspended for threatening a teacher. What he actually did was ask why he was the only student told to move his seat after a bunch of kids were talking. He was asking for fairness.
And he was labeled a threat. He said he felt like a criminal.
Yes. And that feeling, that criminalization of normal curiosity, it changes you. It alters your brain's development.
How so?
This kind of discipline creates a hyperactivated stress response system. Students are essentially stuck in survival mode.
Right.
Think about it. The cognitive energy you should be using for algebra is now being used to scan for threats, to protect yourself. You can't learn like that.
And then there's the emotional damage of just feeling completely unheard, gaslit.
That's the word students use. They feel gaslit when adults deny their reality, dismiss their concerns about unfairness.
And the data on that is pretty stark, isn't it?
It is. National data shows 68% of black students who report unfair discipline also say they feel that no one would believe me.
That level of powerlessness, it has to lead somewhere.
It leads to a protective response called academic withdrawal.
So students just disengage from school on purpose.
Exactly. It's a form of self-preservation. They start to see success itself as dangerous.
Because success makes you more visible.
And being visible makes you a target for unfair discipline. So the logical, though self-sabotaging response is to pull back, to become smaller, to protect your own well-being.
And that mistrust doesn't just end at graduation, does it?
Not at all. Longitudinal research shows that Black adults who went through this are far less likely to trust other institutions, healthcare, mental health services, the justice system. The ripple effects last a lifetime.
And we're seeing the consequences for mental health right now. It's a crisis.
It's a full-blown crisis. The ACOMA Project's 2025 report, it's staggering. More than 40% of Black youth aged 13 to 17 had seriously considered suicide in the past year.
40%.
When a system constantly attacks a young person's sense of worth and safety, this kind of profound trauma is the tragic, predictable outcome.
So let's just sum this up. You have normal teenage behaviors, questioning things, testing boundaries, being emotional, and they get pathologized. They get criminalized because of racial bias.
Unchecked, systemic, implicit bias.
And the result is deep, lasting psychological damage. The system is, in effect, actively denying dreams.
The evidence is just. It's overwhelming. We know what's happening. Which leads to Dr. Knoff's critical question for all of us.
Which is?
Knowing all of this.
Yeah.
Knowing the social, the academic, the psychological harm, what are we going to do about it?
Because silence is complicity.
His argument is that simple. Continued silence makes you complicit in the destruction of human potential.
So the choice is between what evidence-based change or continued complicity. The actionable demands that come out of this research, they feel urgent.
They are. The first is demanding total data transparency in our schools. We need to see the numbers, document the disparities by race, gender, disability.
And then advocate for different practices.
Yes, aggressively. Advocate for trauma-informed, culturally responsive discipline. Treat misbehavior as a chance to teach a skill, not just punish a deficit.
And on a personal level.
On a personal level, every adult has to commit to the uncomfortable work of interrupting bias when they see it, and to actively, vocally support Black families when they say they're experiencing discrimination.
Because our students deserve an educational system that sees their curiosity as intelligence, not defiance.
And their emotion as a call for help, not aggression. They deserve so much better than adults who confuse control with teaching.
So the final challenge for you listening right now is this. What specific institutional structure, what policy, what personal bias are you committed to challenging today to make sure that the next Marcus, the next Keisha, or the next Malik gets the education they are owed?